Back to another episode at Gun Traders Australia, guys. We have got some really exciting things to bring to you today. So I'm here with Terry, who is an avid antique firearm collector. Now, we first met Terry at one of the Queensland arms fairs at Beenleigh, which is halfway between Gold Coast and Brisbane here in Queensland, Australia. If you haven't had the opportunity to get out and have a look at one of these arms fairs, I highly recommend it. We need to encourage our younger people to get involved in the history of how we got to where we are now, because it's really important through these stories that we're telling that this history gets passed along for generations. If you're not sure where if you're not sure where an arms fair is, head on over to guntradersaustralia.com.au. We have all of the events listed on our website, but if you do happen to know of one that we don't have there, please drop it in the comments below and we can get in touch with that association and we can start helping them and promoting their event as well. But what we're here to do today is we're here to talk to Terry. So Terry's been collecting for quite some time. How long have you been collecting for, Terry?
I was going to say 70 years, but it makes me sound a bit old, so 60 to 70 years, yes.
And what got you into collecting?
It started off when I was probably 10-year-old. I was given an old gun that was out of service as a toy more than anything, and I got interested in the gun itself rather than playing with it. So from there it's gone on, you always seem to need a better one. Or a rarer one.
What sort of firearm was it that you first won?
It was actually an old Martini Henry, which was
wow.
used here in the early days before the 303s even.
Yep. And
it's not very significant today, but it was at the time. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And still collecting today?
Still going. Still looking for the rarest of the rare. Yeah.
So Terry's going to take us through some things that really excite me, and it's actually Terry's fault that it excites me, because after speaking to him at the arms fair, I then went away and started looking at Colt Walkers and all of those really amazing. It's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, looking at the rare stuff, that's good, yeah, but that's good.
So, and then talking to Terry, and he's been generous enough to come down to us today, and he's brought some of his rare collection with us so that we can show you at home what some of these really rare items look like. So let's get into it.
We'll probably have a look at what Collier is first, the rarest of the rare.
Let's do that.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. We've got a bit of everything here, but that is a Collier. Made right back in the early 1800s, very early, before Colt was even away. It was even, I suppose he thought of producing a revolving firearm then. This is a flintlock revolving carbine, long barrel, and a removable stock, which I'll try and do this without dropping anything. So that was the idea of the Collier. And he invented, a chap by the name of Collier actually had these made by different makers and promoted them. They were very expensive at the time, and more so today because they're so rare. I believe he produced about 80 in total, which isn't a lot, and there's 16 known in private hands now, 22 in museums, and the others they just can't locate them, just they've been recorded somewhere. But he made different versions. He then went on to a percussion. Of course, a flintlock works on the flint, which creates the spark to go into the pan and ignites it. Then they went on to percussion, the second model, and used a percussion cap, and you did away with the flint and the pan. anyway, that's a Collier. You could go on forever about a Collier, but very rare.
So with that, what was the benefit of having the removable stock?
Okay, it was virtually a pistol,
Right.
but if you want a bit of accuracy and for long range, which I don't think the range was all that good, you had the stock there to turn it into a carbine or a rifle.
Right, okay.
For steadiness, for accuracy, for everything.
So depending on what they were using it for, they
That's
could
right, yeah. If they're trying to get out a bit of distance or be a bit more accurate, they put the stock on. Now, I won't say Collier was the first, quite a few, even up to the later Colts. You had some were issued to cavalry with a stock.
Right.
So they could probably use it on the horse and still hold the reins and keep a bit of pressure there. But
so the stock definitely gave them a bit of accuracy.
yeah, and steadiness. Yeah. Accuracy and steadiness. And if, as I say, the cavalry was on a horse, they had the stock on, they could hold it better rather than using two hands. You see, like a rifle or a carbine.
And the year?
From about 1813 to 1820 something.
Yeah.
Very early, because Colt didn't start. Well, he started actually with the Patersons, which we'll have a look at next. He started with the Patersons much later than that, you
Right.
know, and I'll show you Paterson when we get to that. But
Yeah.
that was his first effort at firearms, was the Paterson, because he went bankrupt in the Paterson era,
Yeah.
and then went on, got a contract with the government and made what they call the Walker, and that was named the Walker. He actually called it the Colt New Army.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he because with the Paterson it wasn't a big enough caliber,
Right.
so he went on and produced the Walker.
Yeah.
For the military, and from then it's history. You know, he went on with the Dragoons and the Navies and till today.
Yeah.
But, okay, the Collier is very interesting because of when it was produced, and of course there were flintlock then. Percussion caps weren't invented, and I'll go on about percussion caps in a moment. But the flintlock, you actually prime, you load your cylinder. In this case, you load each cylinder with your powder, then you ram with your ramrod, you ram your projectile home down here, which is the ball, and then you've got to put a bit of powder in that, what they call the pan there. That's your ignition system. So you put your bit of powder in there and you prime it, and the interesting part about the Collier is they invented a self-priming pan. So instead of having a little powder flask, putting a bit of powder there and probably spilling it, they had this system here that actually primes the pan automatically through a series of linkage. I can't think of any other gun that's got this. Put it down. The pan now, being that little part there, is now primed. When you cock the pistol and fire it, it hits on, that's called the frizzen, and it scrapes down there. Because that's flintstone, it then makes a spark which ignites that bit of powder in there that this has already dropped. It then goes through the hole there, ignites the main load, and away it goes. Seems very complicated, but it was very advanced in those days. The self-priming pan was actually a great invention. But so then after this, when they invented the percussion cap, they then put a little cap on, which I can probably show you later, and that did the same, did away with this,
Yep.
which is like a normal hammer.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
it's just pretty unique the way he's done all that. And the whole thing is unique for that day and age, because most of them were using a single shot muzzle loading pistol.
Yeah, right, okay.
With the flint still, but they had to prime, they had to load the barrel, then prime the pan,
Yep.
and hope they didn't get a misfire. So that's the old saying, keep your powder dry, you know, so if you got that wet, you got a misfire.
Yeah.
But, anyway, it was very, very unique. He was way ahead of the time. As I say, before Colt probably got a lot of ideas from him there.
Yep.
Then many years later, he simplified it and turned into a mass production. So that was all handmade, all all well thought out and ahead of his time, that's for sure.
And then from here, in the life cycle, so is that where the Paterson comes in?
Yes,
Next?
certainly. Colt went on from there. Some years later, Colt actually produced the Paterson, which was a revolving pistol and rifle and shotgun.
Yeah.
He did the whole lot, as Collier did too.
Yeah.
And so just to quickly grab a Paterson here, this one is what they call a Texas number 5. This was Colt's first foray into business, because he worked on this idea of more than one shot. So these are a 5-shot, 36 caliber, and
okay, so 5 shots.
5-shot, the early ones.
Okay.
And because as things went on, the military or everyone wanted a 6-shot.
Yep.
So that's when, and that didn't happen for a while. Till after he had actually gone broke producing these.
Right, okay.
And he couldn't get a contract with the government, which were the main contracts of the day. But this was his, well, whether it was his invention or he picked up and funded it. It's called Paterson, because they were made in Paterson in America.
Yep.
And but they were still Colts, and he promoted them and got them going.
Yeah.
But same deal there, only these were loaded, each cylinder the same.
Right.
And these had a percussion cap.
Right, okay.
He was ahead, it was after the percussion cap had been invented, you see. So then he made these a percussion cap, so they could still load 5 cylinders.
Yes.
Put a cap on each one.
Yep.
And they had 5 shots.
So I'm going to ask probably a silly question, and I apologise in advance. Where's the trigger?
Oh, you need a trigger, that's right. These are what they call a concealed trigger, sorry. I should have explained that.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. And
how cool is that?
the main idea of that was when they're in a holster, I'll let that down, it folds up, you see. So if you're pulling out of a holster, you can't automatically shoot a double. And that was probably the main idea of what they call a concealed trigger. So as you cock it, the trigger comes down.
Now that's clever.
Yeah, I didn't think of the trigger when you were looking at it there, but yeah. So that's what they call a concealed trigger. But, so Colt went on for many years making the Paterson.
So they would load in through here?
No, what they did, they knocked that wedge out.
So they'd take that, they'd do that each time to then get the powder.
Well, they've got 5 shots there. Then once they load that cylinder,
yes,
they have the powder,
yep,
then the ball,
yep,
seated in there, then they've got 5 shots. Whereas normally if the old single shot weapons, they would load each one separate, fire it and do the same thing again. But you've got 5 shots straight off with that, you know.
So that would be remarkably quicker than what they had been using previously.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big improvement. That's why the military wanted it, the soldiers wanted it, everyone wanted something that you didn't have to load every shot with, you know. So then you put your wedge back in, of course, and caps on here, and I probably should have shown you that while I had it out. That's where your little percussion caps go on the, I'm sorry, I'm showing Carly instead of the camera. Put your caps on there, and then you're right to go.
Yeah.
It's all ready to fire. Or probably the correct way is put the caps on as you're sliding it back in, so you don't get any chance of bumping it and getting a misfire.
Right.
But the Paterson was a great invention when he came up with that. but unfortunately he didn't get any military contracts. He didn't only lasted that few years, and Sam Colt actually went broke, and so he went off elsewhere until many years later, of course, then he got a contract for the military with what they called the Walker, which was the military wanted a bigger calibre.
Yeah.
So
this wasn't a big enough calibre
no,
for the military?
No, it was 36 cal. They wanted 44 or bigger,
right,
because their muskets, everything was a bigger calibre.
Yeah.
So he went off, and then when he devised what we now call the Walker, he had the bigger calibre, heavier gun. Unfortunately, they were probably a bit too heavy to wear as a sidearm, so they call them a pommel holster gun. And they had pommels, which I could show you there. Okay, so that's the pommel holsters I mentioned. They were used across the pommel of the horse, and they held a walker each side. We're getting onto walkers now, which were much heavier. That's the walker there, which actually unloaded weighs 4.4 pounds, which was a pretty fair handful, and they were too big to wear on your belt.
Yeah.
And so that's why they made them for the pommel on a horse. They were made for cavalry.
Yep.
And they could just reach down, pull it out, and they're in business, you know.
So these were made specifically for the walkers?
For the walkers, yes,
Yep.
yes. That's an original set made, and when they supplied them to the military, they supplied 2 walkers to each man,
right,
and a set of pommel holsters, and Colt at that time had an argument. They supplied 1 bullet mould to make a projectile,
yes,
and 1 flask, and he had an argument with the government at that time. They actually wanted 2 flasks for each, one for each gun, which may or may not have been required, but that was one of the cases he had with the government. These were made 1 year only in 1847, and the contract with the government was for 1,000 walkers, and I don't know whether you can see it there, but they were each marked for whatever company. Each company got 220, and that one there, can you see that there? And it's on down here again. They were marked everywhere with the company numbers on them. So I think that one is B company number 117. And it'll be marked down here again. They were marked everywhere. They were proper military issue, military order. And so in fact they made 1,000 for the military, and went to A company, B company, C company, and the original order, they were made by Whitney. Colt wasn't set up when he got this contract, so he got Whitney to make them.
right,
And they made 100 civilian ones as well at the time, you know. So that was they were a godsend to the cavalry then, you know. 6 shots, heavy hitter, 44 caliber, and that's what they wanted. But the gun itself was probably too heavy for a sidearm. So the next contract he got, these were a big success. The next contract.
So this was what really pulled Colt.
It got him going again. Because he went broke at Paterson. And he had a couple of years off and doing things like underwater cabling. So he went entirely away, but he was always a thinker. And,
always thinking.
Then he tied up with Captain Walker. That's why they called it Walker. And he finished up getting the contract off the government for that. So that got him going. And then what they call the second contract is for the Colt Dragoon, which is the same calibre, only a bit shorter barrel and a much shorter cylinder, a much lighter gun. So they went on from there and produced the Dragoons, And from there the civilians were saying, I'd like one of those, so he made them right down to the little pocket model. On from there, yeah, success story from there.
So how lucky are we that he bumped into Captain Walker? And,
he probably just didn't bump into him. He was a pretty shrewd old fellow, but he probably just didn't bump into him. But he spent a bit of time with Walker, and the contract was coming up for a better arm for the military.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a copy there somewhere of a letter written by Walker, because he went to Whitney, he had nothing then, he couldn't make a gun.
Yeah.
But so he went to Whitney, put up a deal with him, which was a very good contract for all concerned.
Yeah.
And Whitney said in one of his letters back to Whitney, I've actually got the prototype gun, and it's signed on the back by Colt, and Colt wasn't very well educated, and he spelled Eli Whitney's name wrong on it. So when he got a letter back from Whitney,
yes,
after he got the gun, he would signed it, instead of E-L-I, he signed E-L-Y. So Colt, his next letter was the same. He corrected his misspelling.
Yeah. And
I've actually got the gun there that was sent to him as a prototype, and I don't know what I was going to tell you there about that, but Whitney made them all. He got that initial contract. So the letter I have a copy of, it's only a copy of, is the letter that where Whitney said, if we're going to make this in 6 months, only had 6 months to fulfil the contract, I need the prototype, which is the one I was just telling you about. And Colt and Walker, in one of the letters, he said, we've walked the streets of New York to find one of my new 6-shot armies, he calls them, because they were all 5-shot before that, you see the Paterson. Yep. And these were a 6-shot.
Okay.
And he said, we've got to locate one. Well, then he did locate one, engraved on the back, and probably Colt did himself, but he spelled it wrong, to Eli Whitney from Sam Colt, you know, and sent that down, and the deal was on.
And the rest is history.
And that's exactly right. It just fired up. He did the 1,000 of those with Whitney virtually supplying the material, everything, made them, and then Colt getting the leftovers, and the leftovers being the cash that was left out of the contract, and the other spare parts and the machines, because they paid for them through the contract. And then he started firing up and did what they call the second contract, which is the Dragoon. And then they made a second model in that. Then he went on to smaller guns for the civilian use and for military as well. You know, even the navies were for military. But that's what fired him up again. And as I say, he's still going today. Well, Colt's still going, but he's not. He's a bit old. But it's an interesting story right through, and that's a case one. And actually that was sent to the fellow who made some of the tooling for them, and that shows what you needed to shoot them, being the flask for your powder load, your moulds to make your projectiles, and your nipple wrench and screwdriver, and what they call the question mark tool.
Okay.
There's some projectiles in there. But that's a complete set, telling you how to load it and everything.
Oh my goodness.
But you know,
look at the detail.
He did everything right. Once he got going again, designed it and did everything real good.
Was cooking it in his brain and got enough backing to be able to make it.
The old story goes where he was sitting on the sailing ship as a young fella and he carved one out of wood. I haven't seen that one, but it'd be nice to see it. It'd be nice to have it. But, he was an inventor or a businessman, and whether he took, and there were court cases whether in later years in patents and that, whether he did design it after the Collier, which we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
But he started off with the Paterson, and the Paterson was even very popular, but not for the military contract, which everyone needed then to get volume to gear up and make these things. So that's why he went for the bigger gun, bigger caliber, heavier gun, take more powder.
And it makes sense, like if they're not having to carry them around and they can actually holster them on the horse.
Well, it was made for their cavalry.
Yep.
That's what the original thing, because they didn't have armoured vehicles then, they had horses.
Because then that makes like the weight is not as important.
No, I think it still would have been a bit of a pain, because they are very heavy, as you've realised. But to wear them like most of the gunfighters and that, them were two-gun fellas, and for them to carry those, they couldn't, But, it wasn't as important, because they were used on a horse, and generally the hole in the range was one, and firing 6 shots and at a time, without reloading it, and stop and reload.
Compared to what they had been using, which was single shot, is that
single
right?
Single shot, flintlock and percussion, single shot pistol. So as soon as they fired the shot, they had to, cavalry I suppose then had a sword, they had to rely on their sword to finish the job. But,
and these are percussion?
That's percussion, yes. That's where you put your percussion caps on there again. And
can I just get you to come on in, please?
That's your percussion, that's your nipple in there, and you put your cap on that. The hammer then strikes the cap, shoots a flame through to the main charge in the cylinder, and it's away.
Yeah.
But, and as I said, there were 44 caliber and 6 shot, which the Patersons were 5 was all they ever made. That's why I call these new 6 shot. That's how we know Walker and he, through that letter, they were looking for a 6 shot new army, I think he called them. But since then they've been named and classified as the Walker, because Walker actually got him the contract. He said, this is what we need. And so Colt said, I can make that, which he did, of course. And very successful. And then as they made them a bit lighter, same hitting power, same everything, that was the Dragoon, and then of course in a lot of them, the Navy had the 36, getting back to them again, but probably by then they were getting better powder too, and so it went on from there.
So innovating all of the time.
They were, and then during that period, right up until probably the 1890s, they were everyone, and it wasn't just Colt making guns. There was everyone, Remington, everyone, and they were trying to improve on the design. It's like today, the car makers try and make a better car, more fuel economy or easier to drive, and it was very competitive. That's why this period, right back from the Collier right up to say the 1900s, was very interesting, because there were so many innovations, so many new styles. A lot of them failed, by the way, but everyone was trying to beat the competition.
But they were all trying.
And there was a demand for them. Whether it was for the civilian use, settling the West and needing something just to shoot their dinner. They needed something easier and better. And it was a very competitive market, and people were out there trying to improve all the time. It's the most interesting part of the firearm history in that period.
And I think that's why, after talking to you and then doing a little bit of looking around and YouTubing, it is a very interesting...
Well, it is the most interesting part of firearm history anyway, And because there was a lot of competition. It was a big market, and everyone, of course, was trying for government contracts. That's where the money was.
Yeah.
you know.
So it makes sense that that's what they were all vying for.
That's right. I think the government for the Walkers paid $25 each, which was a lot of money. A Paterson was probably $7 or $8.
Oh,
know.
to put it into comparison like that.
Yeah, I know. And
yeah.
so, but I mean, if it did the job, they were happy to pay it. They probably weren't happy that they paid it. Yeah.
Yep.
But,
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for your time today,
That's
Terry.
all
I
right.
really appreciate
No, that's
it.
all right. As long as you understand things a bit better now too. And
Oh, I'm just humbled that we've been able to just be in the same room as these historical items, and for you to share your wealth of knowledge with not only myself but the viewers at home as well. So, and the other thing that I want to say thank you for is thank you for getting behind Gun Traders. We're only new, and we're trying to innovate, and we're trying to bring all things together, and I really appreciate your time and your support while we're building our brand up.
No, I appreciate your interest and your work in trying to get it out there, because we need someone like you to let particularly the young ones know just the history. You know, as I said, when we were kids, we played with guns. Now, if you mention guns to most people, they shudder because so much bad publicity about modern guns. I'm talking about antiques and the history that's been involved, you know. And,
the stories are being lost because of the stigma that's being attached to it.
That's right, exactly right. For the few bad things, everyone looks at the minorities in everything now, not just guns, but they listen to them because they seem to speak the loudest, and they forget about the good things, you
That's
know.
Right. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to ignite that passion and that excitement around the things like the history and the stories that have led us to where we are now.
That's right, exactly right.
Because without all of this, we would be in a different world, that's for certain.
Probably that's right. We'd be probably using bow and arrows or spears or something, but no, and that's right, we wouldn't be as advanced, and it's part of history, a big part of history, you know.
Yeah.
And, it's more, particularly the young ones, we can educate. They're not a bad thing.
That's right.
Treated right as the people are bad, not the gun.
Yep, yeah.
All right, now thanks for your time.
And thanks, guys, for watching through to the end. Now, if you are interested in obtaining an item like this, not these exact items, Terry does have some of his collection that he's looking to share. So if you want to have a look at some of the items that Terry's got for sale at the moment, head on over to guntraders.com.au, and he's got some items up on our site for sale at the moment. And if you're not seeing what you were actually wanting there are Terry's contact details that you can send him a bit of an email and get in contact with Terry.
Happy
And
to talk,
you'll be at the Queensland Arms Fair in March.
All being well, I'll be there. Yeah.
Yep.
Missed one for many years now, or since they started. I haven't missed any there, but it's good to get out and meet people there.
Yeah. So that's your call to action. So if you're watching this on the 24th and 25th of March 2025,
next year,
head to Beenleigh Arms Fair in Queensland, and come and say g'day to Terry.
Yeah.
Come and say g'day to us. We are travelling around with the Queensland Arms Fair mob. We've kind of been inducted into the fold, which is awesome. And then we're also doing a few with New South Wales as well. But yeah, definitely if you're in the area in March, come down and have a look at Terry's collection, and bring your kids, because your kids are the ones that need to see this stuff, and your kids are the ones that need to talk to the wealth of knowledge that lives inside this generation, who are more than willing and wanting to share these stories. So please get behind it, get involved, bring your kids down. If your kids don't want to come, go and knock on the next door neighbour's door and bring the next door neighbour's kid down.
It's certainly worth having a look at arms fairs. There's all sorts of things there, not just old guns. There's everything there, and I think it's a good day out for most people.
Yeah.
Whether they want to pursue guns or things associated with them, it's just a good education for them, I think. Yeah,
it really is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching, guys, and remember, like and subscribe. It really helps our channel. Head on over to guntraders.com.au and have a look at what Terry's got up for sale at the moment, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
All right.